Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis, which is presented to you by LawSikho. So, today we have three articles, and all of these articles are very interesting today. So, the first article is from The Hindu, which is titled as Being Tethered to Bars During the Pandemic. So, we've almost discussed this kind of article before as well, but since it is of utmost importance in the criminal jurisprudence and this issue is rising up again and again, so we decided to take up. So this basically talks about the overcrowding of the prisons in our country, and what are the what should we be doing in this direction has been discussed in this article. The second one is again from the Hindu, which is titled as Mining in India equals selling the family gold. Now, this article is a very, very amazingly written article, and this basically talks about that how we are going into the mining things, and we as a country are mining a lot, but we are not able to reap the equivalent benefits that we must be reaping out of it, and what should be the sustainable development in this regard has been discussed over here. And finally, we have an article from the Indian Express, which talks about balance sheet of a bad bank. So basically, as we know that there is this huge problem going on about balancing and working up the non-performing assets of various banks in our country, specifically in this time of slowing economy. So in this direction, the idea of having a bad bank has been brought up. So though it is not a very new idea, but what is it and what will we mean by the bad bank has been discussed over here. So if you're also preparing for judicial services examination, you can have a look at the Lord of the Courses, which is the judiciary test prep course from LawSikho. The link to this course is available in the description box below, and from the landing page, you can download free study material for yourself as well. Also, we are doing very well into our courses for CLAT, All India Bar Exam, SEBI, etc. You can have a look at them too. Let's see what is the multiple choice question from yesterday's discussion. The volcano, Mount Semeru, that had recently erupted is located in, so you have to identify which country or which country basically is it. So your options are Kenya, Italy, Japan, Indonesia. So basically all of these countries are those that have volcanoes with themselves. So where is Mount Semeru situated? You have to find out that. This is the descriptive question for the day. Suggest the reforms required in the prison administration in India. What are the rights available to prisoners under Indian criminal system? You can write down your answer in a word limit of maximum 200 to 300 words. So let's start with the first article, which talks about the COVID jail inmates and the issue of decongestion. So basically, India has around 1,400 prisons, and in those 1,400 prisons, we have almost 4.5 lakh prisoners, and it is almost a breeding ground for the virus, because as we know that the very biggest step that we were taking to curb down the virus was of physical distancing, of keeping at least a distance of 2 yards from one another. But that you can definitely now understand is practically impossible in these jails to keep a distance, and due to high congestion, all of these prisoners who are there in the jail are under great risk of the catching the virus. And around 3.3 lakhs are under trial prisoners, that are also known as the UTPs, and they are detained under section 167 of the CRPC. One thing that we need to note here is that the largest population, or the largest share from these 4.5 lakh prisoners is, out of them, 3.3 lakhs are under trial prisoners, and there is a very high chance that they are completely innocent, but because of the trial that is going on against them, they are serving their term. They are just, they're just there in the prisons. They're not even convicts in the current scenario. Now, let's just imagine that any one person, for example, who is an under trial prisoner, and he actually turns out to be a completely innocent person, but he catches virus and he dies because of this virus, then can we understand the gravity, that what cost did he have to pay because of staying in that prison, and he was all innocent, but just because he was an under trial prisoner in these congested prisons, he caught this virus and he actually died because of it. So these are things that we need to keep in mind, and that is why it is very much important that none of them, see, in Indian, the criminal system that we have in India, there are a lot of human rights and other constitutional rights also that are available to the prisoners. and it is to those prisoners who are actually serving their term of imprisonment in these prisons. So just imagine that what would be the level of rights that should be available for the people who are just under trial prisoners. So that is why it is very important that we work on decongesting the prisons in India, and we try to maintain the services which are important for sanitation and hygiene in over there. So if we talk about the data from other countries, and yes, one thing that again is of, it's very unfortunate and sad that in India we don't even have a complete good public data as well. So these are the data that this data is just available through various kinds of surveys that have taken place either on the NGO level or the personal levels, but we do not have any state-run authority that actually takes care of counting the inmates over there or taking care of all the facilities available to the inmates. So if we talk about the other countries, then in the United States in March 2020, over 40 public health experts called federal prisons and immigration centers the breeding grounds for uncontrolled transmission. And in September 2020, 44 out of the 50 COVID-19 clusters were found to be located in the prisons. And if we talk about the United Kingdom, 79,000 prisoners in 121 prisons. So can you just imagine per the number of people there in one prison over there, it must be so congested. And the prisoners that were tested positive were 883 in September and 1529 in October. So you can see almost just double of it was there in the very next month. So according to the Criminal Procedure Code Amendment Act 2005, it added section 436A, which said excluding offences punishable with death, and under trial is to be released on personal bond with or without sureties if he has spent more than half of the maximum period of imprisonment prescribed. So for example, the maximum period of imprisonment that has been prescribed under the offence that he might have committed or he might have been accused of, so it is 1 year, and he already has served a term of, for example, more than say 6 months. So then he must be released on personal bond with or without sureties. So there are two aims of section 436A. Firstly, decongestion, obviously, and secondly, being fair to that particular person who is there under trial. With this, let's discuss the second article for the day, which is a very interesting article which talks about the mining in India. If any one of you at all is preparing for or must have seen the paper for UPSC Civil Services Mains this year for 2021, this was the very first question from GS3 paper, from the Economy, Environment and Security paper, which actually talked about the intragenerational and intergenerational equity when it comes to inclusive growth and sustainable development. So this article in a way tries to answer one of the very main aspects of that very question, and it has taken up a very important question of mining. So it says that the principle of sustainable development is highly relevant today as climate change and high level of consumption are threatening the future generations. Now here what you need to see is that firstly, what do we mean by sustainable development? Now this is one of the most basic question, basic topic whenever we had studied EVS or whenever we study, environmental economics as well. So basically it means that we must use all the resources that we currently have in such a manner that even the next generations that are yet to come on this earth, they also have an equitable share of these resources and they are also able to lead a good and well of life. So this basically means the very system of having a sustainable development. And the author here says that it is very much important that we keep in mind the very principle of sustainable development because it is very relevant, keeping in mind the climate change and the high level of consumptions that are actually threatening the rights or the equity of the future generations. Whenever, please keep in mind that it is a very simple thing. Whenever we use the term equity, we simply mean having an equal share in any kind of thing. So when we talk about intergenerational equity or intragenerational equity, so for example, all of us are currently here on the earth, we're using the resources in the present situation. So this equity or this opportunity for all of us being able to use the resources in an equitable manner would be intragenerational equity, that is within a generation. But when it comes to the intergenerational equity, and when we consider the equity or the share of the generations that are yet to come, or between two different generations, that would be intergenerational equity. So I hope you're getting the idea and there is no confusion to this, because this having clarity at this very point is very important, because only then you will be able to understand the further context of this a very article. So as we know now, it has already been said clearly that sustainable development is important, specifically if we talk about the intergenerational equity, and even if we talk about intragenerational equity, inclusive growth, that is bringing all the people together. It is not just, it should not be that only the rich people of the society are able to enjoy the resources of the earth. So that should definitely not be the case. So that is the inclusive growth and a complete sustainable, growth of the people in one generation, that is within that generation, is also important. Now, how sustainable is India's mineral policy? So basically, this article focuses uh, on the mineral policy, keeping specifically the mineral policy in mind. But definitely, we have various other things as well, like we have the water resources, we have clean air, and other kinds of resources as well, which are important for sustainable growth and development. But this article focuses primarily on the mineral policy of India, and then there is an analysis that how sustainable are we, keeping in mind the mineral policy that we follow. So, according to the National Mineral Policy 2019, natural resources are a shared inheritance where the state is a trustee on behalf of the future generations. Now, this is such a beautiful way of, giving a kind of surety to the future generations, and also that this new National Mineral Policy 2019 says that for the future generations that are yet to come, the state is the one that has this responsibility, or in whom the future generations have been given their trust, that it will be the duty of the state to maintain a sustainable development goal. And in that scenario, it would be the duty of the state to keep the resources safe and conserved for the use of future generations as well. But then again, what we need to see is that how much in the practical sense are we really being able to achieve it? Are we really able to achieve it or not? So thus the primary objective of the trustee is to maintain the corpus of the trust and the shared inheritance. So as we know that all the resources that we have on our earth, they're all shared inheritance. So definitely we have also inherited from our forefathers, but this is not something that is to be limited just to our use. The way we have got it from our forefathers and ancestors, similar is the duty for on us also to let them be safe for our future generations as well. So thus we call them as shared inheritance. Now they are saying, the article here says that basically when we do mining or any kind of mineral activities so recklessly, what ultimately are we doing is that we are selling out the inheritance. Now I'll give you a very simple example of this. For example, there is a complete lineage or long term hierarchies coming of a very old a family system, and then there is a very beautiful necklace which was once created by one of the forefathers, say 150 years ago. So that necklace, it moved from one generation to another, to another, and to another. Now you can understand that this is not just a necklace, but it is something that is very antique, and it is best when it is able to be moved to the further generations, so that they can really realize the value of the ancestors and the value of the all the panna or whatever diamonds or whatever endowments are there in that particular necklace. And if at all you tend to sell this particular necklace at a value of say 50 lakh or 1 crore rupees, you can imagine that this definitely is not the real value of this necklace, keeping in mind the long journey that this necklace has covered, and it needs to be preserved further to keep its value intact. So this is what this article is particularly trying to say, that the rates or the value at which we are currently trading off or selling off our mineral resources, we are actually going into a lot of loss. We are only getting a superficial idea that we are making a good economic profit out of these mineral resources. But if we keep in mind that what would be the value of these mineral resources, keeping in mind the requirements of our future generations, then this value for which we actually sold them off in the current day, on the current date, will seem to be very less, and we actually are standing at loss in the present situation. So like it says that for the extraction of oil, gas and minerals, they are sold at prices lower than their actual worth. Like they have given an example that Goa lost more than 95% of the value of its minerals in 2004 to 12. It was according to an annual report given by Vedanta, and it said like that, for example, if a particular source was sold out for 5 crore rupees, so actually for that particular amount of selling out of that mineral resource, it went into a loss of 95 crores. So you can imagine that what output are we really getting, that something that is of a value of rupees 100 crores, and we are selling it off only for rupees 5 crores. So what loss are we availing in the totality, we can simply get from this idea. Now, why at all are we doing this? Because we are in a rush of selling out everything, and we are in a rush of, impressing maybe the rich people of the society, that we want to give them the resources they are asking for or something like that, and we're not able to realize the real value of these resources. Now, here are a few steps that are needed in this direction. Correction in government accounting standards advisory for public sector accounting and reporting. So that is why we need to understand that what actually is the value of the trade that we are doing, and what are we falling for. Then achieve zero loss in value while extracting. So we should be able to capture full economic rent of that particular mineral. Then the sale proceeds must be saved in future generation funds, such as in Norway. So Norway literally has a complete future generations fund, where the sale proceeds that are, or the revenue that is generated from it, is kept safely into these funds. Then we have the benefits would be like the dividends, rise in the savings, funds for long-term investments, etc., should be given to the public. And in the 2014 Supreme Court judgment in Goa Foundation versus Union of India and others, it ordered creation of Goa Iron Ore Permanent Fund, almost similar to this one in the Norway. Then we should follow the principles of fair mining, and we should be fully constitutional and be promoting justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. That by that we mean that every individual of the society, not just the rich people or the people who are actually given the benefit of it, should receive it. Rather, every individual of the society, because everyone has equal access to the natural resources, so everyone should be given a shared profit of it. And somewhat the idea in this article is given like for the universal basic income through these, and moral, ethical, fair, and right and sustainable use of all the resources. Now, here are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals which had been chosen by the United Nations General Assembly. Please, please, please memorize all of these SDGs by heart and their number. Like number 1, we have zero poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education and stuff. These are very handy whenever you're answering any question in the mains, and specifically if you're taking up any essay that is related to any issues. Look out onto these SDGs, because in some or the other way you can fit almost all of these environmental topics into any of the sustainable development goals. So you should please always you should learn these sustainable development goals by heart and their number as well. With this, let's discuss the last topic for the day, which talks about the non-performing assets and bad banks. So as we know that the non-performing assets, now I'll give you a very small introduction as to what do we mean by the NPAs, or the non-performing assets. So basically these are the assets, or these are the things which had to be beneficial for a particular bank, but they are not able to perform their function of giving out or working out as an asset for a particular bank. Like I'll give you an example, that there is a bank called Bank ABC. Now this bank lends a loan of rupees 100 crores to a huge infrastructure company. Now, wherein this loan was given to this infrastructure company, so definitely the bank was expecting not only in return the principal amount that was of 100 crore rupees, but also huge interest on this particular amount. Now let's take an example that this company, which was given, this infrastructure company which had taken this loan from ABC Bank, this goes bankrupt, or the owner of this bank takes away all the money and he runs away, or anything happens in the direction that this company now is not able to pay back this huge loan of rupees 100 crores back to Bank ABC. Now, can you imagine that how much stress would be there on the entire money flow that was taking in the bank? Because see, how do the banks work? Some people, they deposit their money in the banks, then the banks lend some amount of money. From that, they get some kind of interest, and then again they have money and they again lend to some other people. So there is this huge cyclical system that goes on. Now, if you can imagine that if huge amounts of money are blocked at any one situation or any one stage, then definitely the functioning or the money flow in the bank, within the bank, and amongst the the lenders and the depositors, it would definitely be hampered. So there are other various other kinds of non-performing assets also which are attached to the banks. So basically why this idea is that anything that had to be a profitable thing for the bank, but it is not able to perform in that particular direction. So currently, various public sector banks in India are facing huge problem of these NPAs, and that is why, specifically, if we talk about in the situation of pandemic and the slowing down economy, which was there even before the time of pandemic. So for to tackle with the non-performing assets, you must have heard that a few months back, the RBI had also merged various banks to actually bring those banks together and to reduce the NPAs. But till date, none of the steps taken by the RBI in this direction have proved to be very successful, and that is why this idea of bad banks has come up. So the RBI governor, who is Shaktikant Das, you must also remember the name of the current governor of RBI. He recently agreed to consider. Now, please do not get confused that we have agreed to having this institution of bad banks, but rather the RBI governor has agreed to consider it. So now discussions would be taken up in this direction. So he's agreed to consider the creation of bad banks to resolve the growing problem of NPAs. Now, our important concern is that what do we mean by bad banks? So it was this idea was first introduced in 1988 by US-based Mellon Bank. So it was already there. It was brought in 1988 in US. So this was introduced. It is a bank with bad assets to start with. Now this is a very starting point. Basically, when we generally like if we're starting a normal bank, so it has very good assets. It has all those things which are very profitable for the bank in the coming future. But on the contrary, a bad bank is one which already starts with the bad assets. So what bad assets? So what we'll be doing is that we'll be giving the NPAs to all the NPAs to the bad bank, and this would be the starting point for these bad banks. And it is technically an asset reconstruction company, which is the ARC. So by asset reconstruction company, we mean that the very purpose of these bad banks would be that whatever assets, like in this case the NPAs, through NPAs, whatever assets or profitable things we have lost due to any kind of economic changes or the bad performing banks or any kind of situations going on in the market, so it would try to reconstruct or build upon for more and more assets for that particular bank or particular institution, and that is why they are called as the asset reconstruction company, which would actually takes over bad loans below the book value of commercial banks. So it will actually take all the bad loans. Now by bad loans here we mean that those loans of which now we do not really have much of the, we don't have any hope of getting back either the principal value or even the interest. Just as I gave you the example of rupees 100 crore loan to the infrastructure company. Now if at all this company is not able to pay any loan back, now not even the principal amount or the interest, so this loan will be called as a bad loan, because now this loan is not being able to be repaid to the bank. So this ARC, or the asset reconstruction company, takes over the bad loans and of the commercial banks, and it manages them and finally recovers the money over a period. So basically, the very purpose of this bad bank would not be to make the profits, or it would not be to lend money to somebody or ask somebody to deposit the money. No, that would not be definitely the criteria. It would not be something like the other commercial banks work the way. But the primary purpose of this bank would be taking all the bad loans from the commercial banks, then work upon these bad loans and try to recover as much as is possible from the bad loans. Like for example, this loan of 100 crore rupees. So if not 100 crore rupees, at least some amount, maybe of 40 crore, 50 crores, 60 crores, 70 crores, at least some amount can be brought back to the bank so that some damage can be controlled. And then this helps the commercial banks to clean the balance sheets by solving the NPAs. Now, as we know that the banks have to, they maintain their balance sheets as to what assets do they have, what liabilities do they have. So it actually helps them to balance out these balance sheets and make them clear in the long run. Then let's understand the stand of RBI and the governor on bad banks. So the former RBI governor Raghuram Rajan had opposed the idea, stating that it did not see how it would improve the matters, and that is why this idea was not really considered at that time also. But Viral Acharya suggested two models to solve the problem of NPAs. Firstly was a private asset management company, and the second was national asset management company. So you don't need to get into very much details of these, just the opinions of the the people associated with this. Then if we talk about, as we already had discussed, the problem of NPA in India. So the gross or total NPAs in the banking sector could reach 13.5% by September 2021, which is according to the financial stability report given by the RBI. And if we talk about the corporate bank debt, or corporate debt, or the debt which is taken by the corporate sector, which is worth rupees 15.52 lakh crore, has come under stress after COVID-19 in India, because we know that the company's infrastructure, uh, telecom, not much of telecom, but power, electricity, they have gone into a lot of stress into the pandemic as well, and even before that. So while 22.20 lakh crore was already under stress before pandemic, according to the KV Kamath committee. Now the name of this committee also should be kept in mind, as to which committee had told about the the stress which is there in the corporate sector, or which worked on the calculation of the NPAs, etc. So it was the KV Kamath committee. You can also use this name or this committee's name in your answers as well, if at all a question comes to this regard. So we're done for the day. We hope it was a good session for you. If you wish to download the PDF for today's slides, you can join our Telegram group. The link to this group is available in the description box below. And you can also visit our official website for any other information. Thank you so much.